The German sniper's laughter died the second the black Suburbans arrived. 47 minutes earlier, he'd been mocking an old man with a wooden rifle. Now, 12 Delta Force operators surrounded him, and a colonel was saluting that same old man with 3 words that made every soldier freeze. "Spectre 1, sir." But nobody knew that yet. Right now, the German was still laughing. Right now, he still thought he was in control. He had no idea what was coming. Hit subscribe right now. You need to see how this ends. Drop a comment with your city. I want to know how far this story travels. Stay until the end. Trust me. Dennis Randall's hands shook. 82 years does that. He set his coffee down. The cup rattled against the bench. "You checking in?" The young specialist held a clipboard. "If there's space." "What are you shooting?" "Winchester Model 70. The kid blinked. "That's old." "It works." "Lane 7. Stay behind the red line." Dennis picked up his case. Leather. Brass latches. 50 years of wear. That's when he heard it. Laughter. 2 men. German KSK patches. Tactical vests. The kind of men who walked like they owned the world. The tall one name tape said Richter was watching him. Klaus Richter said in German, "Look at this dinosaur." Klaus turned, smiled. "Is that a museum piece?" They laughed louder. Dennis kept walking. What they didn't know was that their laughter had just started a countdown. 47 minutes until everything changed. He reached lane 7, knelt down. His knees protested. Inside the case, wrapped in cloth, lay the rifle, wood stock, worn barrel, and 3 initials carved near the trigger. LTB Dennis's thumb traced them, like always. "Hey, old-timer." Richter's voice cut across the range. Dennis looked up. "Nice antique," Richter said, walking closer. "Does it fire, or is it just for show?" "It fires." "Really?" Klaus followed. "What's your effective range with that thing?" "Depends on the wind," Richter laughed. "Depends on the wind." "Did you hear that, Klaus?" "We shoot by calculation," Klaus said. "Computers, technology." "That's good." Dennis wasn't looking at them. He was reading the grass downrange, watching the wind. But what he said next would haunt Richter for years. Richter crouched down, got in Dennis's face. "You know what I think you're here for nostalgia, remembering when you could actually hit something." Dennis kept setting up his rifle, calm, methodical, silent, and that silence was about to cost Richter everything. Other soldiers noticed. A crowd formed. Lieutenant Webb walked over. "Problem here?" "No problem," Richter said, standing. "Just curious about Grandpa's equipment." "Then be curious somewhere else." "Of course. But perhaps," Richter smiled, "a demonstration." Webb's jaw tightened. "What kind?" Klaus pointed downrange. 1,100 meters, orange target. "Let's see if the old man can hit it," the crowd murmured. 1,100 meters, nearly impossible. But what happened next would prove impossible was just another word for difficult. Webb looked at Dennis. "Sir, you don't have to. I'll shoot." 2 words, soft words, but they landed like hammer strikes. Richter grinned. "Excellent. Should we bet on it?" "No bets," Webb snapped. "This is a military range." "Of course. We just want to learn from our elder." The sarcasm dripped. Dennis loaded 1 round. The brass clicked home, but he didn't shoulder the rifle. He just sat, waiting. "Problem?" Klaus asked. "Can't see anymore." Dennis shook his head. "Wind's not right." "The wind," Richter laughed. "Admit it, you can't make the shot." "I didn't say that." "Then shoot." Dennis looked at him, really looked. And for 1 second his eyes weren't old. They were sharp, dangerous, killer's eyes. "I'm waiting for the wind to settle." Something in his voice made Richter's smile crack. What Richter didn't know was that a young specialist named Garcia had just pulled out his phone, 20 feet away, back of the crowd. Garcia dialed. "JSOC duty officer. This is Specialist Garcia, Range 7. We got German KSK guys harassing an old vet, getting disrespectful." "Name of the veteran." Garcia squinted at the old man's ID badge. "Randall, Dennis Randall." Silence. Complete silence. Say again. Dennis Randall. R-A-N-D. Do not let him leave. Understand? Do not let him leave. Click. Garcia stared at his phone. What the hell? And in that moment, alarms were going off across Fort Bragg that would bring a colonel and 12 operators to this range in under 10 minutes. Back at the firing line, Richter was on a roll. You know what this is, he announced to the crowd. This is what happens when old men cling to glory that never existed. They come here with grandfather's rifles pretending they were warriors. Klaus nodded. In Germany, we respect elders, but we also respect reality. Dennis's thumb traced the initials again. LTB Larry Thomas Bell. The memory hit fast. Vietnam. Rain. 6 hours pinned down. Larry bleeding from his lung blood bubbling from his mouth. Take it, Larry whispered, pressing the rifle into Dennis's hands. Blood smeared the wood. Promise me. Make it count. Larry died before the helicopter landed. Dennis kept the rifle, kept the promise. But he never talked about it. Not to his daughter, not to anyone. Some promises you keep in silence. Hey. Richter snapped his fingers in Dennis's face. You sleeping or admitting defeat? Dennis blinked. The wind had changed. He felt it. The shift. The grass downrange moved steady now. Predictable. He shouldered his rifle. The crowd went dead silent. Wait, Klaus said. Is he? Then they heard it. Engines. Loud engines. Close. Everyone turned. 3 black Suburbans screamed onto the range. Dust everywhere, moving like they were chasing someone. What the hell? Webb muttered. The vehicles skidded to a stop. Doors flew open. Men poured out. Not regular soldiers. Delta Force. Full combat kit. Body armor. Weapons ready. 12 of them. They formed a perimeter around the crowd in 15 seconds. Professional. Terrifying. Richter's face drained white. What is this? But what came next would drop him to his knees mentally. A colonel stepped out. Tall, gray hair. Chest covered in ribbons. Name tape. Thorn. He walked straight toward Dennis. Every soldier snapped to attention. Thorn stopped, stood at attention, and saluted. Spectre 1, sir. Colonel Thorn, JSOC Command. Reporting. The silence was absolute. You could hear hearts beating. Dennis looked up, confused. Marcus, what are you doing here? Someone called about a situation involving you, sir. We don't take those lightly. It's nothing. Just talk. Didn't sound like nothing, sir. Thorn turned to the crowd. His eyes found Richter and Klaus. Which ones? Garcia raised his hand. Those 2, sir. The KSK operators. Thorn walked toward them. His operators moved with him. 12 men. Silent. Deadly. Your names? Hauptmann Richter, sir. This is Oberleutnant Klaus. We're part of... I know who you are. What I want to know is why you thought it was acceptable to mock this man. We were just... Conversation, sir. Conversation. Thorn's voice could cut steel. You mocked his weapon. You mocked his age. You challenged him to prove himself. That summarized your conversation. Richter's throat worked. We meant no serious. Then you're more ignorant than I thought. And what Thorn said next would end 2 military careers before lunch. He turned to the crowd, voice rising. Most of you don't know this man. Not your fault. His service was classified. Still is. But I'll give you the cleared version. He pointed at Dennis. This is Dennis Randall, call sign Spectre 1, first sniper ever recruited into Delta Force. Before that, 2 tours Vietnam. Marine Scout sniper. His confirmed kills are classified, but the record he set in '73 stood for 21 years. Gasps rippled through soldiers. Richter looked like he might vomit. He trained 3 generations of snipers. He wrote the manual half of you learned from. When we needed impossible shots, we called him. Every time. Klaus found his voice. Why didn't he say anything? Because he doesn't have to. Thorn's words hit like punches. Respect isn't about credentials. It's about character. Today you proved regardless of your training or your nation's reputation, you have none. Webb stepped forward. Sir, what do you... Nothing. This is between them and Spectre 1. Thorne turned to Dennis. Sir, the range is yours. You want to make that shot, you have every resource we can provide. Dennis looked at his rifle. At those initials. LTB. Make it count. He stood, knees protesting, walked to the firing line. The wind was perfect, steady. He could read it like a language he'd spoken his whole life. Dennis settled into position. The rifle felt like part of his body. 1,100 meters downrange, the orange target waited. His breathing slowed. 2 breaths in, 1 breath out. He whispered, so quiet. Pride's a poor spotter, Larry. Makes you miss every time. He squeezed the trigger. The shot cracked. Sharp, clean, final. 3 seconds of silence. Then, hit dead center. The crowd exploded. Soldiers shouting, pointing downrange. Disbelief everywhere. Dennis lowered the rifle. His hands shook again. Not from age this time. From memory. From promises kept. Thorne walked over, extended his hand. Still got it, sir. Just lucky. No such thing. Not at that distance. Richter and Klaus stood frozen. Thorne approached them. Here's what happens now. You apologize to Spectre 1. Then you return to your CO and explain today. And if I ever hear of you disrespecting another veteran, any nationality, I will personally end your careers. Clear? Yes, sir. They walked to Dennis. Both looked at the ground. Sir, Richter said, voice hollow. We apologize. We were wrong. Dennis nodded. You were. But you're young. You'll learn. The initials, Klaus said quietly. LTB. Dennis's jaw tightened. A friend, 18 when he died, gave me this rifle with his last breath. Made me promise to make every shot count. I'm sorry. So am I, son. The Germans left, escorted by MPs. Crowd dispersed. Garcia approached, nervous. Sir, I called it in. Hope I didn't. You did right. Thank you. Garcia smiled, relieved. Thorne stayed. They'll write this up. Story will spread. I don't want that. Just wanted to shoot. I know. But sometimes the world needs reminders. Pause. You staying local? My daughter's place. Good. We'll have you at the compound. New guys should meet you. I'm retired Marcus. Legends don't retire, sir. Thorne smiled. They just reload. He saluted. Left with his team. Dennis stood alone. Morning sun fully up now. He looked at the rifle, at the 3 letters. Made it count, Larry. Just like I promised. The wind carried his words, and somewhere in a 50-year-old memory, a young Marine with blood on his lips smiled, because some promises last forever. No matter how long, no matter how hard, no matter what. What Dennis didn't know yet was that this wouldn't be the end. The story was just beginning. Garcia had filmed the shot on his phone. By tonight, it would have 2 million views. By tomorrow, news crews would be at his daughter's house. By next week, the Germans would be recalled to Berlin in disgrace. And Richter would spend the next 3 months trying to find Dennis again. Not for revenge, for redemption. Because some lessons cost you everything to learn, but they're worth it. Always. Dennis packed his rifle, closed the case, brass latches clicking. He walked to his truck. A 94 Ford, rusted but reliable. Got in, started the engine, drove away. Just an old man leaving a firing range. Except he wasn't just an old man. He never had been. And now the world was about to remember why. Back at the range, Webb stood watching the truck disappear. What just happened? A young private asked. Webb shook his head. History, son. We just witnessed history. Will we see him again? I don't know, but I hope so. The private looked downrange at the target, still fluttering in the wind, orange center gone completely. Sir, that shot. Was it really that impossible? Webb smiled. For us, yes. For him. He paused. That was just Tuesday. Meanwhile, in a JSOC command center, Colonel Thorne sat at his desk. His second-in-command, Major Riley, stood at the door. "You think the Germans will learn?" Riley asked. "They better." I wasn't bluffing. "What happens now?" "Now." Thorne leaned back. "Now we wait. Spectre 1 is back in the world. That means something." "He's 82. So," Riley smiled. "Fair point. Get me his file, the full one. That's above my clearance. Then get someone with clearance." "Sir." "Do it, Riley. We need to remember who that man is, what he did. Because the new generation, they don't know. They think Delta Force started with them. And it didn't. It started with him, with men like him, before computers, before drones, when all you had was a rifle, a prayer, and a promise to come home." Riley nodded, left. Thorne opened his desk drawer. Inside was a photo, black and white. Vietnam, 1972. A young man in Marine fatigues, rifle across his lap, eyes that had seen too much. Below the photo, a signature. "To Marcus, may you shoot straight and live free. Spectre 1. Thorne had been 19 when he met Dennis, fresh out of basic. Thought he knew everything. Dennis had been his instructor for 1 week. 1 week that changed Thorne's entire career. "Respect the weapon," Dennis had said. "Respect the wind. Respect your enemy. But most of all, respect the shot, because once that bullet leaves you, can't take it back." Thorne closed the drawer, looked out the window. Somewhere out there, an old man was driving home, thinking about a friend who died 50 years ago, carrying a promise that never expired, and that Thorne thought was what true soldiers looked like, not the ones who bragged, the ones who stayed silent, who carried their ghosts with honor, who shot when necessary, and walked away when it was done. "Godspeed, Spectre 1, Thorne whispered. "Godspeed." Dennis pulled into Sarah's driveway. She was on the porch, coffee in hand. "How was the range?" she asked. "Fine. Just fine. Made a shot. Some young men learned a lesson." Sarah smiled. "You always were good at teaching." "Tried to be." He went inside, set the rifle case by the door, sat in his chair. The TV was on. News. He wasn't watching. He was thinking about Larry, about that promise, about every shot since. Hundreds of them, thousands, each one carrying Larry's voice. Make it count. And he had, every single time. His phone buzzed. A text from a number he didn't recognize. "Sir, this is Garcia. Just wanted to say thank you. You changed how I see service today. SPC Garcia." Dennis smiled, typed back slowly. "You're welcome, son. You did good calling that in. Stay sharp. Dennis." He set the phone down, closed his eyes, just for a minute, and in that minute he was 23 again. Rice patties, rain, Larry's voice. "You're gonna be great, Dennis. You're gonna save so many people." "I tried, Larry," Dennis whispered to the empty room. "I tried." Outside, the sun moved behind clouds. The wind picked up, and somewhere on Fort Bragg, a German sniper named Richter sat in his barracks, staring at his hands, wondering how he'd become the kind of man who mocked legends, wondering if he could ever fix it, not knowing yet that in 3 months he'd get his chance. But that's a story for later. For now, an old man rested, a promise kept, a shot made, and the world just a little bit more right, because that's what legends do. They don't demand recognition. They don't need applause. They just do the work, make the shot, keep the promise, and walk away. Quietly, with honor, always. 3 hours after the shot, Garcia's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. He'd posted the video on Reddit. Just a 30-second clip. Old man, wooden rifle, impossible shot. Title: Grandpa schools German snipers at Fort Bragg. 47 upvotes in 10 minutes. 3,000 in an hour. 50,000 by dinner. What Garcia didn't know was that he'd just lit a fuse that would reach all the way to the Pentagon. Dennis was eating leftover meatloaf when Sarah's phone rang. She answered, listened. Her face went pale. "Dad, There's a reporter outside. Dennis set down his fork. What? From the Fayetteville Observer, says he wants to talk about what happened today. I shot a rifle. That's all. He says there's a video. It has 2 million views. Dennis's stomach dropped. 2 million. Larry's voice echoed in his head. Make it count. He'd made it count all right. Now everyone wanted to know why. Sarah opened the door. The reporter was young, eager, held a recorder like a weapon. Mr. Randall, I'm Josh Brennan. Can I ask you about the shot at range 7? No. Sir, people want to know your story. No story, just a shot. But the video shows Delta Force arriving, saluting you, calling you Spectre 1. Dennis's jaw tightened. That's classified. Not anymore, sir. It's on the internet. And that's when Dennis realized his quiet life was over. What he didn't realize was that across the Atlantic, a German general was watching the same video, with his career flashing before his eyes. Brigadier General Klaus Zimmermann sat in his Berlin office. The video played on repeat. His nephew, Oberleutnant Klaus, being humiliated on American soil, his protege, Hauptmann Richter, looking like a fool, and an 82-year-old man making them both look like children. Zimmermann picked up his phone. Get me the American liaison, now. 2 minutes later, General Marks. We have a situation. 2 of my men were involved in an incident at Fort Bragg. I'm seeing a video. I need answers. On the other end, General Marks was already watching the same video. Your men mocked a Medal of Honor candidate, Klaus. Silence. Excuse me. Spectre 1, Dennis Randall. He was nominated 3 times. Turned it down each time. Said he was just doing his job. Mein Gott. Your men are being recalled, effective immediately. And Klaus, this is going to be a diplomatic incident. Zimmermann hung up, stared at the video. His nephew had mocked a living legend, and now the entire German military would pay the price. But what nobody knew yet was that this was just the opening act. Back in Fayetteville, Dennis's phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Hello? Is this Dennis Randall? A woman's voice. Professional. Cold. Who's asking? My name is Catherine Wells. I'm a producer for 60 Minutes. We'd like to interview you about your service. Not interested. Mr. Randall, your story is inspiring. My story got men killed. That's not inspiring. That's just sad. He hung up. Sarah stood in the doorway. Dad, maybe you should talk to someone. Tell your side. My side doesn't matter. What matters is Larry never got to tell his. Who's Larry? Dennis looked at her, really looked. She was 47, his only child, and he'd never told her about Vietnam. Never told her about the promises. Never told her about the ghosts. Larry was my spotter, he said quietly. Died in my arms. Made me promise to make every shot count. Sarah's eyes filled. Dad, I didn't know. You weren't supposed to. Some things you carry alone. But carrying things alone was about to become impossible. The next morning, 17 reporters camped outside Sarah's house. Trucks, cameras, satellites. Dennis looked through the blinds. This is getting out of hand. Sarah poured coffee. Maybe if you give them one interview, they'll leave. They won't. They never do. His phone rang again, this time a number he recognized. Colonel Thorne. Spectre 1. We need to talk. The video's causing problems. What kind of problems? International kind. Germans want an apology. State Department's involved. And someone leaked your full record. Dennis's blood ran cold. Leaked what? Everything. Confirmed kills. Mission reports. The Cambodia operation. That was classified. Not anymore. Someone with access pulled your file. It hit WikiLeaks 2 hours ago. Dennis sat down hard. The Cambodia operation. 74 confirmed kills in 1 week. A village saved. And secrets that were supposed to die with him. Who leaked it, he asked. Working on that. But Dennis, you need protection. I'm sending a team. I don't need... Yes, you do. Because whoever leaked that file, they knew it would paint a target on your back. What Thorne didn't say was that the leak came from inside JSOC, and the person responsible was about to make everything worse. Major Riley stood in a parking garage. Burner phone, encrypted app. "It's done," he typed. "Randall's file is public." The response came fast. "Good. Phase 2 begins tomorrow." Riley deleted the conversation, started his car, drove away. He'd served with Thorne for 6 years. But loyalty had a price, and someone had just paid it. What Riley didn't know was that Thorne was already tracking him. Back at Sarah's house, 2 Suburbans pulled up. 4 operators got out. Full kit, professional. The lead man knocked. "Mr. Randall Sergeant, First Class Mason. Colonel Thorne sent us. We're your security." Dennis opened the door. "I don't need security in my own home." "With respect, sir, you do now. Your location's been posted online, along with your service record." "Posted where?" Mason handed him a tablet. Dennis read. His hands started shaking. Not from age, from rage. Someone had posted his address, his daughter's address, photos of the house, and a caption, "The ghost of Vietnam, still alive, still dangerous. Let's remind him what happens to killers." "Who wrote this?" Dennis's voice was ice. "Unknown." "But sir, we've already had 3 threats called in. We need to move you." "Move me where?" "Fort Bragg. Secure location. Until we sort this out." Sarah grabbed her keys. "I'm coming too." "Ma'am, that's not—" "My father goes, I go. End of discussion." Mason looked at Dennis. "Your daughter always this stubborn. She gets it from her mother." They loaded into the Suburbans, drove fast. Dennis watched reporters scatter as they pulled away. "This is insane," Sarah muttered. "This is consequences," Dennis said. "I spent 50 years staying quiet. Now everyone wants to hear me talk." "So talk. Tell them why you did it." "You don't understand. What I did, some of it was necessary. Some of it I'm not proud of. And all of it lives in my head every day." "Then maybe it's time to let it out." Dennis looked at his daughter. Maybe she was right. Maybe silence had protected him long enough. Maybe it was time to speak. But what he said next would change everything. At Fort Bragg, they were escorted to a secure building, small apartment, 2 bedrooms, armed guards outside. Thorne arrived an hour later. "How you holding up?" he asked Dennis. "Been better. Who leaked my file?" "Still investigating, but we have theories." "Theories don't help." "No, but this might." Thorne set down a folder. "We found communications. Someone inside JSOC has been in contact with a foreign intelligence service." "Which one?" "Russian SVR." Dennis's blood went cold. "Why would Russians care about me?" "Because you're a symbol. America's elite warrior. Living proof that old ways still work. They want to discredit you. Make you look like a war criminal. I followed every rule. Doesn't matter, they'll twist it. Say Cambodia was illegal. Say your kills were murders. Say you're a monster." Dennis stood, walked to the window. 74 kills in 1 week. He saw every face, every shot, every promise kept. "Let them say it," he said quietly. "I know the truth." "But does your daughter—" Dennis turned. "What? Does she know what you really did over there? The missions, they'll twist. The operations, they'll call war crimes." Sarah stepped into the room. "Dad, what's he talking about?" And there it was. The moment Dennis had avoided for 47 years. He looked at his daughter, at Thorne, at the life he'd built on silence. "Sit down," he said. "I'll tell you everything." What he didn't know was that Riley was listening through a bug planted in the lamp, and every word Dennis said would be used against him. Dennis started at the beginning. "Vietnam, 1968. I was 23. Thought I knew everything. Turned out I knew nothing." Sarah sat, listening, not interrupting. "They put me in Scout Sniper School, Marine Corps. I was good. Too good, maybe. By my second tour, I had 47 confirmed kills." He paused. "Then Cambodia happened." Thorne leaned forward. "You don't have to—" "Yes, I do. She deserves the truth." Dennis looked at Sarah. "We got intel. North Vietnamese had taken a village. Hostages, women, children. Command said wait for air support. But air support was 6 hours out." "What did you do?" Sarah asked. I didn't wait. Took 3 men. Went in dark. Spent 6 days moving through jungle. When we got there, it was worse than reported. His voice cracked. 27 hostages, executed, lined up, shot in the back of the head. Sarah's hand covered her mouth. But 32 were still alive, locked in a building. Guards everywhere. We counted 74 enemy combatants. Dad, you said earlier, I know what I said, 74 confirmed kills, all in 1 week, all to save those 32 people. Silence filled the room. We went in that night. No support, no backup, just us. I took position on a ridge, 200 meters out, started calling shots. His hands clenched. First shot dropped the guard at the main gate. Second got the patrol leader. Third got the radio operator. We moved fast, systematic. My team breached the building. I kept shooting. Anyone who moved toward that building died. How long did it take? Sarah whispered. 6 hours. 6 hours of continuous fire. My rifle barrel glowed red. Had to let it cool twice. When it was over, 74 dead, 32 saved, and 4 of us walked out. That's heroic, Sarah said. No, that's war. And war isn't heroic. It's necessary. But it costs you. Every shot I took, I see those faces. Every night. Thorne spoke up. What Dennis isn't telling you is that operation saved those hostages. Without him, they all die. But command was furious, Dennis continued. We disobeyed orders, went rogue, should have been court-martialed. Instead, they buried it, classified the whole thing, made it disappear. Why? Sarah asked. Because it worked, and because they wanted to use me again. That's when Delta Force recruited you, Thorne said. Dennis nodded. 1973, they were forming a new unit, wanted the best. Apparently I qualified. Spent the next 18 years doing missions that officially never happened. Like what? I can't tell you. Some are still classified. But I can tell you this, every shot I took to save lives, not take them. Sarah stood, walked to her father, hugged him. You're a hero, Dad. Don't let anyone tell you different. But what nobody in that room knew was that Riley had just sent the entire conversation to Moscow. And by morning, Russian state media would be calling Dennis Randall a war criminal. 3 hours later, Thorne's phone exploded. Turn on CNN, his aide said. Thorne grabbed the remote. The banner read American sniper hero or war criminal. A Russian spokesperson was talking. This man, Dennis Randall, murdered 74 people in Cambodia. An illegal operation. No declaration of war. No due process. Just killing. The anchor interrupted. But reports say he saved 32 hostages. Alleged hostages. We have no proof. What we have is proof of 74 deaths. That's not heroism. That's terrorism. Thorne turned it off. Dennis sat motionless. They're twisting it, Sarah said. They're making you look like a monster. Let them. People who know the truth know better. But what Dennis didn't realize was that people who knew the truth were dying. Thorne's phone rang. Colonel, we have a situation. Lieutenant Webb, the range officer from yesterday. He's dead. What? Car accident, single vehicle ran off the road. When? 2 hours ago. Thorne looked at Dennis. Webb is dead. Dennis's face went white. How? Car accident, but I don't believe in coincidences. Neither do I. And that's when they realized. Someone was cleaning up witnesses. Anyone who saw what happened at Range 7. Anyone who could verify Dennis's character. They were being eliminated. Get me a list, Thorne barked. Everyone at that range. Everyone who saw Dennis make that shot. I want protection on all of them. Now. His aide ran out. Sarah grabbed Dennis's hand. Dad, what's happening? Someone's trying to bury the truth, and they're willing to kill to do it. Why? Because I'm a symbol. Old warrior. Old methods. Old honor. If they can destroy me, they can destroy the idea that honor still matters. Thorne's phone rang again. Specialist Garcia, just admitted to hospital. Severe beating. Someone jumped him outside his barracks. Is he alive? Barely. But sir, he managed to say something before he lost consciousness. What? He said Riley. Just that one word. Riley. Thorne's blood turned to ice. His second in command, his trusted officer, the man he'd worked with for 6 years. "Where is Riley now?" Thorne asked slowly. "Unknown, sir. He left the base 3 hours ago. Hasn't returned." Thorne stood. "Lock down the base. Find him, and get me his service record. Everything." He looked at Dennis. "We have a traitor, and he's been listening to everything we've said." Dennis processed this. "The bug has to be. He knew we'd bring you here, knew we'd talk, recorded everything. Then he knows about Cambodia, about every mission. Yes, and he's selling it to the Russians." "That's my theory." Sarah stood. "So what do we do?" What Thorne said next would start a manhunt that would span 3 continents. We hunt him, we find him, and we make him answer for Webb, for Garcia, for every soldier he betrayed. Dennis stood. "I'm coming with you." "Sir, you're 82, and I'm the one they're trying to destroy. This is my fight." "Dad, you can't." Dennis looked at his daughter. "Sarah, I've spent 50 years running from my past, staying quiet, letting others tell my story. Not anymore. If Riley wants to paint me as a monster, he can do it to my face." Thorne considered. "Against my better judgment, okay, but you follow my orders. Understood, understood. Good, because we're about to go hunting, and the prey is dangerous." What nobody knew was that Riley was watching them through another camera he'd planted, and he was already 3 moves ahead. Riley sat in a safe house 20 miles from Fort Bragg, laptop open, encrypted chat active. "They know," he typed. "Doesn't matter. Package is delivered. Randall's reputation is destroyed. Your payment has been transferred." Riley checked his account. $5 million. Blood money, but money nonetheless. "What about me?" he typed. "They'll hunt me. Disappear. We have resources, new identity, new life. You've earned it." Riley smiled. 6 years of planning, 6 years of waiting, and now finally payday. What he didn't know was that Thorne had already triangulated his location, and a team was 2 minutes out. Back at Fort Bragg, Thorne briefed his team. "Target is Major Riley, former Delta, trained by the best. Do not underestimate him." "Rules of engagement?" an operator asked. "Take him alive if possible, but if he resists..." Thorne paused. "Do what's necessary." Dennis stood in the corner, watching, remembering. This was his world once. Brief, plan, execute, clean, efficient, deadly. "Sir," one of the operators approached. "Is it true you're Spectre 1? Dennis nodded. "My instructor talked about you, said you could shoot through a rainstorm." "Your instructor exaggerated." "Did he though?" Dennis smiled. "Maybe a little." The operator extended his hand. "Honor to meet you, sir." They shook, and in that moment, Dennis realized something. He'd spent 50 years thinking his legacy was blood, kills, missions. But his real legacy was standing in front of him. Young men and women who believed in honor, in service, in doing the hard things because they mattered. That was worth protecting. That was worth fighting for. "Mount up," Thorne ordered. "We're moving." They loaded into vehicles, 4 Suburbans, 16 operators, plus Dennis. Sarah grabbed his arm. "Dad, please be careful." "Always am." "That's a lie, and you know it," he smiled. "Okay, I'll try to be careful." She kissed his cheek. "Come back to me. Promise." They drove into the night. What waited for them would test every skill Dennis had ever learned, and prove that age was just a number, when honor was on the line. The safe house sat 20 miles outside Fayetteville. Single story. Isolated. Perfect for someone who needed to disappear. Riley checked his watch. 43 minutes since his last message. The extraction team should arrive in 2 hours. New passport, new identity, new life. He closed his laptop. That's when he heard it. Engines. Multiple engines. Coming fast. "No," he whispered. He grabbed his go bag, weapon, cash, documents, ran to the back door. Too late. Headlights flooded the windows. Vehicles surrounded the house. Doors slammed. Boots hit gravel. Riley's heart hammered. They'd found him faster than he'd calculated, much faster. What Riley didn't know was that Dennis had been tracking him through methods the younger man couldn't comprehend. Inside the lead Suburban, Dennis stared at the house. "How certain are we?" Thorne asked. 90%, the tech specialist said. "Signal triangulation puts his phone here. Heat signature shows one person inside." "Could be a trap," an operator suggested. "Could be," Thorne agreed. He looked at Dennis. "What do you think?" Dennis studied the house. Windows, doors, sight lines. His mind worked like it always had, calculating, assessing, planning. "He's alone, panicking, made mistakes." "How do you know?" "Because I trained men like him. When they panic, they revert to basics, and basics make you predictable." Thorne nodded. "Mason, take your team. Breach and clear." "I want him alive." "Copy." 4 operators moved toward the house. Fast, professional, weapons ready. Dennis watched them work. Muscle memory kicked in. He could see their formation, anticipate their movements, read their hand signals like a second language he'd never forgotten. "Beautiful," he murmured. "What?" Thorne asked. "Watching them work. They're good." "You trained half their instructors." "Then I did something right." The team reached the door, stacked up, prepared to breach. That's when the first shot rang out. Riley fired through the front window. Wild, desperate, the operators scattered, taking cover, returning fire with discipline. "Contact front." Mason's voice crackled over radio. Thorne cursed. "So much for taking him alive." "He's scared," Dennis said. "Scared people make fatal mistakes." "Like what?" "Like forgetting to watch their 6. Dennis pointed. The back door, still unwatched. Riley had focused everything on the front assault. Classic error. Thorne keyed his radio. "Team 2 circle around. Back door, now." 3 operators peeled off, moving through darkness, silent as ghosts. Inside the house, Riley was frantically reloading. His hands shook. Sweat poured down his face. This wasn't supposed to happen. He'd planned everything, every detail, every contingency, except he'd underestimated Thorne's response time, and he'd forgotten that Spectre 1 was still Spectre 1. Age didn't erase instinct. The back door exploded inward. Flash bang, blinding light, deafening noise. Riley stumbled, disoriented. Operators rushed in, professional, controlled. "Down, get down!" Riley raised his weapon. What happened next took 2 seconds but felt like forever. Dennis watched through the window as Riley's finger tightened on the trigger. Watched the operator in the doorway. Watched the angle, the trajectory, the certainty of what would happen. "He's going to shoot," Dennis said. Before Thorne could respond, Dennis was out of the Suburban, moving faster than an 82-year-old man should move, heading toward the house. "Spectre 1, stand down," Thorne shouted. Dennis ignored him. He'd seen too many young men die because of split-second hesitations. Not today. Not again. He reached the back door just as Riley fired. The shot went wide, Riley's hand shaking too badly for accuracy. Dennis stepped into view. No weapon. Hands visible. Calm. "Riley, it's over." Riley spun, weapon pointing at Dennis's chest. "Stay back." "Can't do that, son. You know why." "I'll shoot you. I swear I'll do it." "I know you will. You're scared, cornered. That's what scared animals do." Dennis took a step closer. "But you're not an animal. You're a soldier. You swore an oath." "That oath meant nothing." Riley's voice cracked. 6 years of service. "You know what I got? Debt. PTSD. Nightmares. While men like you got medals and glory." "I never wanted glory." "Liar, you're a legend. Spectre 1, the ghost. Everyone knows your name. Everyone knows a story. They don't know me." Another step closer. Riley's weapon trembled. "Stop moving." "I can't. Because if I stop, you'll make a choice you can't take back. And son, you've already made enough bad choices tonight. You don't know what it's like. Coming back from war. trying to live normal. Watching civilians thank you while they have no idea what you did, what you saw. Dennis's voice softened. You're right. I don't know what you've been through, but I know what I've been through, and I know betraying your brothers doesn't fix it. They're not my brothers. They're my competition. Always was. Fight for scraps. Fight for recognition. Fight for anything that makes the pain stop. So you sold out for money. I sold out for peace. $5 million means I never have to think about war again. That's not how it works, Dennis said quietly. Money doesn't buy peace. It just buys distraction. He was 5 feet away now. Operators held their positions, waiting, fingers on triggers, ready to drop Riley the second he moved wrong. But Dennis had a different plan. Larry was 18, he said. Riley blinked. What? My spotter, Larry Thomas Bell, 18 years old, died in my arms. You know what his last words were? I don't care. Make it count. That's what he said. Make every shot count. Dennis took another step. I've spent 50 years making it count. Every shot, every mission, every decision, because Larry never got the chance to make his count. That's your guilt, not mine. You're right. It's my guilt, my burden, my ghosts. But son, you just inherited your own. Webb Garcia. Every man you betrayed, they're your ghosts now. Riley's face crumpled. The weapon dropped slightly. I didn't mean for Webb to die. That wasn't supposed to happen. But it did, and you can't undo it. You can only face it. They'll kill me. Prison. Court-martial. Death penalty. Maybe, but at least you'll face it with honor. That's more than you have right now. Riley's weapon wavered. For 3 seconds, nobody breathed. Then Riley lowered it, dropped it, fell to his knees, sobbing. I'm sorry, God, I'm so sorry. Operators rushed in, secured him, zip-tied his hands. Dennis stood watching, his chest tight, not from exertion, from memory. He'd talked down armed men before, in jungles, in villages, in moments where death was one trigger pull away. But it never got easier. Thorne approached. That was stupid and reckless. Probably. You could have been killed. But I wasn't. Why'd you do it? Dennis looked at the sobbing man being led to a vehicle. Because I saw myself 40 years ago. Broken. Lost. Drowning in ghosts. Someone gave me a chance back then. Thought I'd return the favor. He betrayed us. Yes, and he'll answer for it. But he's still a soldier, still a man who served. That counts for something. Thorne studied Dennis. You know they'll want you to testify. Tell them everything. I know. Cambodia. Every classified mission. Every shot. It'll all come out. Good. Maybe it's time. What neither of them knew was that Riley's arrest was just the beginning, and the real threat was still out there, watching, waiting, planning. They transported Riley back to Fort Bragg, secure facility, armed guards, full interrogation setup. Thorne and Dennis sat across from him, recording equipment running. Tell us about your contact, Thorne said. Riley stared at the table. I don't know his real name, only his handle. Konstantin. Russian SVR. I think so. Never confirmed. He reached out 2 years ago, said he had information about my father. Dennis leaned forward. Your father? He died in Afghanistan. 2003. IED. I was 12. I'm sorry, Dennis said. Don't be. I never knew him. He deployed when I was 6 months old. Came back once, then gone again. KIA when I was 12. I barely remember his face. Riley's voice hardened. Konstantin said my father was killed because of bad intel. Said American commanders knew the route was compromised, sent the convoy anyway. That's a lie, Thorne said. Maybe, maybe not. But Konstantin had documents, photos, classified reports, all showing command knew, all showing they sent my father to die anyway. Dennis's jaw tightened. So you believed him? I wanted to believe him, needed to, because if my father died for nothing, if he was just another casualty of incompetence, that meant everything I'd done, every mission I'd served, was built on the same foundation of lies. So you sold us out for revenge, Thorne said. I sold you out for truth. Riley slammed his hands on the table. You want to talk about honor? About service? Where's the honor in lying to families, in pretending every death meant something when half of them were just mistakes? Your father's death meant something, Dennis said quietly. He died protecting his brothers. That's what soldiers do. Easy for you to say. You're the legend, the hero. Everyone remembers your name. Who remembers my father? Who remembers the thousands like him? Dennis stood, walked to the wall, turned back. I remember. Riley looked up. Staff Sergeant Marcus Riley, 3rd Infantry Division, killed April 16, 2003, outside Karbala, IED blast. Also killed Corporal James Chen, Private First Class Deshaun Williams. 3 men, 1 vehicle, 1 moment. Riley's eyes widened. How do you? Because I remember all of them. Every casualty report that crossed my desk when I was still active. Every name, every date, every family left behind. That's impossible. It's not impossible. It's responsibility. Your father died serving his country. That matters. That means something. Don't let Constantine twist that into something it wasn't. Riley's shoulders shook. But what if he's right? What if Command knew? Thorne pulled out a file. Here's your father's mission report. Unredacted. Read it yourself. He slid it across the table. Riley read, his hands trembling, tears falling. The route wasn't compromised. Intelligence was solid. The IED was new, planted that morning. Nobody could have known. His father didn't die because of incompetence. He died because war is chaos, and chaos doesn't care about fairness. Riley closed the file. Constantine lied. Yes, Thorne said. He found your pain, weaponized it, made you a tool. What happens now? Now you tell us everything. Every communication, every meeting, every piece of information you gave him. And then you face justice. But you face it knowing the truth. Riley nodded, broken but honest. What he told them over the next 3 hours would expose a network that reached higher than anyone expected. Constantine wasn't working alone, Riley said. He had help. Inside help. Inside where? Thorne demanded. Inside JSOC. Inside the Pentagon. Inside places I don't even have clearance to know about. Dennis and Thorne exchanged glances. Names? Thorne said. I only met one, Colonel Brennan, Joint Chiefs Liaison. The room went silent. Colonel Brennan, 30 years of service. Decorated, respected, trusted, and apparently compromised. What was his role? Dennis asked. He fed Constantine intel, unit movements, operation details, anything the Russians wanted. In exchange for what? Riley hesitated. Money, a lot of it. Offshore accounts, shell companies. Brennan was bleeding the system for years. Thorne stood. How certain are you? I saw documents, bank transfers, communications. He's dirty. Has been for at least 5 years. Jesus, Thorne muttered. Dennis processed this. A colonel, selling secrets, using Riley as a cutout, exposing operations, destroying lives, and all of it hidden behind medals and respect. We need to move carefully, Thorne said. If we spook him, he'll disappear, Dennis finished. Take his money and vanish. Exactly. Then we don't spook him. We trap him. Thorne looked at Dennis. What do you have in mind? What Dennis proposed next would either expose the biggest military scandal in decades or get them all killed trying. We use me, Dennis said. Use you? How? Brennan wants to destroy my reputation. Prove that old warriors are liabilities. Relics who should be forgotten. Let's give him what he wants. I'm not following. Dennis smiled, cold, calculating. We leak that I'm cooperating, telling everything, every mission, every classified operation, Cambodia, Delta Force, everything. That'll make you a target, Riley said. That's the point. Brennan will have to act. He can't let me testify, can't let the truth come out, so he'll send someone to stop me. A hit, Thorne said. Exactly. And when he does, we'll be waiting. That's using you as bait. I'm 82. If I can't be useful, what's the point? Thorne studied him. You know this could go wrong in a dozen ways. I've faced worse odds. In combat, this is different. This is political. These people don't fight fair. Dennis laughed. Neither do I. What nobody in that room knew was that Brennan was already watching, already planning, already moving pieces into position. Colonel Brennan sat in his Pentagon office, secure line, encrypted phone. Constantine, we have a problem. Riley. Captured. He's talking. Silence on the other end. Then, how much does he know? Enough. He knows about me, about the network, about everything. Then we accelerate. Phase 3 begins immediately. Phase 3 wasn't supposed to start for another month. Plans change. Randall is the key. If he testifies, everything unravels. We need him eliminated. Eliminated how? Leave that to me. But I need something from you. Randall's protection detail. Where is he who's guarding him? Brennan pulled up files. Fort Bragg. Secure facility. Thorne has a team on him. 12 operators. Rotating shifts. 12 operators won't stop what I'm sending. What are you sending? Someone who makes Spectre 1 look like an amateur. Brennan's blood chilled. You're sending Volkov. Yes. Viktor Volkov. Former Spetsnaz. Current freelance killer. 37 confirmed kills. 0 failures. If Volkov was coming, Dennis Randall was already dead. He just didn't know it yet. When? Brennan asked. He's already in country. We'll make contact within 24 hours. And if he fails, he won't. But if he does, we have contingencies. Randall dies either way. The only question is how much noise it makes. Brennan hung up, stared at his computer screen. 30 years of service. Gone. All because an old man wouldn't stay quiet. But if Randall died, the questions died with him. And Brennan's secrets stayed buried. He made another call. General Marks, we need to talk about Randall's security. I have concerns. What Brennan was about to do would give Volkov the opening he needed. And Dennis Randall would walk right into it. Back at Fort Bragg, Dennis couldn't sleep. Too much adrenaline, too many memories. He sat in the small apartment, alone. Sarah was asleep in the next room. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. Hello. Spectre 1. A voice. Male. Accent. Russian. Dennis's grip tightened. Who is this? Someone who respects you. Your skills. Your service. Your dedication. Get to the point. The point is simple. You are being used by your own people. They don't want the truth. They want a scapegoat. And you want what? I want nothing. But my employer wants you to know you can walk away. Disappear. Live out your years in peace. All you have to do is stop talking. Not going to happen. I thought you'd say that. Unfortunate. You seem like a good man. A warrior. It's a shame we're on opposite sides. Who are you? My name is Victor, and soon we'll meet face to face. When we do, I promise to make it quick. You deserve that much respect. The line went dead. Dennis sat frozen. Viktor Volkov. He knew the name. Everyone in the community knew the name. The Russian ghost who never missed. The killer who made death look like accident. The man who'd been hunting American assets for 15 years. And now he was coming for Dennis. Dennis stood, walked to Thorne's quarters, knocked. Thorne answered. Groggy. What's wrong? Volkov just called me. Thorne was instantly awake. What did he say? That he's coming. That he'll make it quick. That I should walk away while I can. We need to move you. Different location. More security. No. Dennis. I said no. We stick to the plan. I'm the bait. Let him come. Volkov doesn't miss. You know that. Neither do I. Thorne studied him. You're really going to do this. Go up against Volkov. I don't have a choice. If I run, he'll find me anyway. Better to face him on my terms. On your terms means what? Dennis smiled. Means I choose the ground. Choose the time. Choose the rules. And if you're wrong, then I die. But at least I die fighting. Larry would have wanted that. Thorne sighed. You're insane. Probably, but I'm also right. What Dennis didn't tell Thorne was that he'd faced men like Volkov before, in jungles, in mountains, in places where skill mattered more than technology, and he'd never lost, not once. He wasn't about to start now, even if he was 82, even if Volkov was in his prime, even if the odds were impossible. Because impossible was just another word. And Dennis Randall had made a career of redefining words. The next morning, they leaked the story. Spectre 1 to testify, legendary sniper reveals classified missions. Every major outlet ran it. CNN, Fox, BBC, Al Jazeera. Dennis's face plastered everywhere. His location mentioned vaguely. Fort Bragg, secure facility, heavy security. The bait was set. Now they waited for the trap to spring. Thorne positioned teams everywhere. Rooftops, perimeters, inside the building, 40 operators, best of the best, all waiting for one man. You think he'll really come? Mason asked. Oh, he'll come, Thorne said. Question is when and how. Dennis sat in his room, rifle across his lap. Not his old Winchester, a modern rifle. Barrett M82, 50 caliber, effective range 2,000 meters. Thorne had insisted, if you're going to face Volkov, at least give yourself a chance. Dennis ran his hand along the barrel. It felt wrong. Too heavy, too modern, too impersonal. But it would work, and that's all that mattered. Sarah knocked. Dad, you okay? Fine. She sat next to him. You don't have to do this. We can leave, disappear, change our names. Then what? Spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder, wondering when he'll find us. Better than dying. Maybe, but not better than living with honor. She took his hand. I wish you'd told me about all of this, about Vietnam, about Delta Force, about who you really were. I wanted you to see me as your father, not as a soldier. You're both, and I'm proud of both. Dennis squeezed her hand. Thank you. Promise me you'll be careful. I always am. Dad, he smiled. I promise. I'll be careful. But what he didn't say was that careful wasn't going to be enough. Not against Viktor Volkov. Not against the best killer Russia ever produced. This wasn't going to be careful. This was going to be war. And war had only one rule. Survive. Volkov arrived at Fort Bragg 3 days later. Not through the gates. Not through any checkpoint. He walked in through the drainage system. 20 years of studying American military bases had taught him their weakness. Everyone watched the perimeter. Nobody watched what flowed underneath. He emerged 200 meters from Dennis's building, dressed as a maintenance worker. Clipboard. Tool bag. Orange vest. Invisible. He'd been invisible his entire career. 37 kills, 0 failures, 0 witnesses. Dennis Randall would be number 38. But what Volkov didn't know was that Dennis had been expecting him. Not at the perimeter, not at the gates. From underneath. Because Dennis had used the same technique 40 years ago in East Berlin. Inside the secure facility, Dennis sat at a table with Thorne. Laptop open, drainage system blueprints displayed. Here, Dennis pointed, this junction leads directly to our building. If I was coming in quiet, this is how I'd do it. Thorne studied the map. That's a tight crawl. Most men couldn't fit. Volkov isn't most men. He's 5'10", maybe 160, built for insertion work. He'll fit. How certain are you? 90%. And if you're wrong, then he surprises us. But I don't think I'm wrong. Thorne keyed his radio. Mason, I need eyes on Junction 7. Underground. Thermal imaging. Now. Copy that. 3 minutes later. Colonel, we have movement. Single heat signature. Moving toward our position. Thorne looked at Dennis. You called it. Experience. Once you've been the rat in the tunnel, you know how rats think. What's the play? Dennis stood, grabbed the Barrett. Let him get close, then I take the shot. He's underground. You won't have line of sight. He has to emerge sometime. When he does, I'll be waiting. What Dennis didn't say was that he'd been preparing for this moment his entire life. Every shot he'd ever taken was practice for this one. The one that would prove age meant nothing. Skill meant everything. Volkov reached the access point, pushed the grate up slowly. Listening. Silence. He climbed out. Tool bag first, then himself. Smooth. Practiced. Professional. He was 50 meters from Dennis's building. Guard tower to his left. Patrol route to his right. He checked his watch. Patrol change in 4 minutes. Guard distraction in 2. Everything timed perfectly. He moved toward the building, staying low, using shadows. What he didn't see was the infrared laser painting his chest. Dennis watched through the scope, breathing steady, heart rate controlled, 60 meters, perfect range, wind calm, no adjustment needed, target moving, predictable pattern. His finger rested on the trigger, but he didn't shoot, not yet. Sir, Mason's voice crackled. You have the shot. I know. Then take it. Not yet. Need to be certain. Thorne stood beside him. Certain of what? That it's really him. That this isn't a decoy. That we're not walking into a trap. Because that's what Dennis would do. Send a decoy. Draw out the defenders, then strike when they're exposed. Volkov stopped. 30 meters from the building. He knelt, opened his tool bag. Inside, disassembled rifle. Suppressor, ammunition. He assembled it in 45 seconds. Muscle memory. Thousands of repetitions. Then he raised it, aiming at Dennis's window. That's when Dennis knew. It was really him. No decoy would assemble a weapon. No trap would go this far. This was Viktor Volkov, and he was about to fire. Dennis's finger tightened on the trigger, but before he could shoot, Volkov moved, rolled left, behind a concrete barrier. Damn, Dennis muttered. He made you, Thorne asked. No, he's just careful, changing position, standard counter-sniper protocol. So what now? Now we wait. He'll emerge. They always do. But what Dennis didn't know was that Volkov wasn't alone. 200 meters away, a second figure emerged from another access point. Female, early 30s, moving like smoke. Thorne's radio crackled. Colonel, we have a second signature. Female, armed, moving toward your position. What? Thorne grabbed the radio. Where? Northwest corner, coming fast. Dennis's blood ran cold. Volkov brought backup, and they'd only been watching for one target. Mason, redirect Team 2. Intercept that second target, now. Copy. But it was already too late. The woman moved faster than any operator Dennis had ever seen. She reached the building in 30 seconds, breached the door with a shaped charge, disappeared inside. Alarm screamed. We have breach, someone shouted. Gunfire erupted. Close, inside the building. Sarah. Dennis dropped the Barrett, grabbed his sidearm. Where are you going? Thorne yelled. My daughter's in there. He ran, 82 years old, but running like he was 23 again. Downstairs, through hallways, toward the gunfire. What he found would test every skill he'd ever learned. The woman stood in Sarah's room, weapon trained on Sarah's head. 3 operators down, blood everywhere. Drop it, the woman said, Accent, Russian, voice cold. Dennis raised his hands, weapon visible but not aimed. Let her go. No, she's my insurance. Insurance for what? Getting out alive. You're Dennis Randall, Spectre 1. I know your record. You won't risk your daughter. You're right. I won't. He lowered his weapon, set it on the floor, kicked it away. Smart. Now step back. Dennis stepped back. The woman moved toward the door. Sarah held as a shield. Please, Sarah whispered. Please don't. Quiet. The woman pressed the gun harder against Sarah's temple. Dennis's mind raced. Distance 4 meters. Too far to rush. Angle bad. Sarah directly in line of fire. Weapon on the floor. 3 meters away. Options 0 unless. Your partner's dead, Dennis said. The woman's eyes flickered. What? Volkov. Outside. My team took him. He's bleeding out right now. You're lying. Am I? Check your comms. He's not responding, is he? She keyed her radio. Victor, Victor, respond. Silence. Her grip loosened. Just slightly. Just for a second. But a second was all Dennis needed. He moved, faster than she could track. Not toward his weapon, toward her. His hand caught her wrist. Twisted. The weapon discharged. Bullet into the ceiling. Sarah dropped. Training kicked in. Dennis had taught her basic self-defense when she was 16. She rolled away. Dennis drove his elbow into the woman's throat. She gagged, stumbled. He swept her legs. She fell hard. Operators rushed in, secured her, zip-tied her hands. Clear, Mason shouted. Dennis knelt beside Sarah. You okay? I'm okay. Dad, your arm. He looked down. Blood. The discharge had grazed him. Shallow, but bleeding. It's nothing. It's not nothing. Sarah, I'm fine. I've had worse. Thorne arrived. Volkov. Still out there, Dennis said. This was a distraction. Get me back to that rifle. They moved fast. Back to the observation room. Back to the Barrett. Dennis settled in. Ignored the pain in his arm. Focused. Volkov had moved again. New position. Behind a vehicle. Smart. Using cover. Waiting for his partner to complete her mission. But his partner was captured. And now he was alone. Dennis watched. Patient. Calm. 50 years of training focused on this moment. The wind shifted slightly. He adjusted. Range 70 meters. Easy shot. But Volkov wasn't showing himself. What's he waiting for? Mason asked. Same thing I am. An opening. You're both just going to sit there until one of us makes a mistake. Yes. What Dennis didn't say was that mistakes killed snipers, and he'd made a career of not making mistakes. 5 minutes passed. 10. Volkov hadn't moved. Dennis hadn't moved. Patience versus patience. Skill versus skill. Legend versus legend. Then Volkov's radio crackled. His partner's capture would have been reported. He knew she'd failed. Knew he was alone. Knew his mission was compromised. He had 2 choices, abort or commit. Dennis watched his heat signature through thermal. Saw the moment Volkov made his decision. The signature moved. Rising. Preparing to retreat. Dennis's finger moved to the trigger, but he still didn't shoot. Sir, he's escaping, Mason said. I know. Then shoot. Can't. He's still behind cover. No clean shot. Volkov moved toward the drainage access. Fast. Professional. He'd be underground in seconds. Gone. Dennis shifted. New angle. Trying to find line of sight. Nothing. Volkov was too good. Using every piece of cover, never exposing himself. We're losing him, Thorne said. Dennis's jaw tightened. 50 years. Thousands of shots. Dozens of impossible kills. And now he was going to miss. Going to let Volkov escape. Going to fail. Then he remembered something Larry had said. Sometimes the shot you need isn't the shot you have. You make the shot you need. Dennis shifted the Barrett, aimed not at Volkov, but at the concrete barrier protecting him. What are you doing? Thorne asked. Making the shot I need. He fired. The .50 caliber round punched through concrete like paper, fragmented, expanded. Behind the barrier, Volkov screamed. Not a kill shot, but a hit. Dennis cycled the bolt, fired again. Same spot. More concrete exploded. Volkov stumbled into view, leg bleeding, dragging himself toward the access point. Now Dennis had his shot. Clean, clear, perfect. But before he could fire, Volkov raised his weapon, not at Dennis, at the building, at the windows, at where Sarah had been moments before. He was going to shoot blind, spray and pray, try to hit anyone he could before he died. Dennis had 1 second to decide. Take the kill shot, end Volkov, but risk him firing first, or shoot the weapon, disarm him, keep everyone safe. His mind calculated. Angles, trajectories, probabilities. Then he did something only Spectre 1 could do. He shot the weapon. Not Volkov's hands, not his body. The weapon itself. 70 meters away. Moving target. Weapon the size of a football. The shot was impossible. Dennis took it anyway. The round struck Volkov's rifle, dead center. The weapon exploded. Metal fragments everywhere. Volkov fell, screaming, hands shredded. Operators rushed out, secured him, applied tourniquets. He'd live. But he'd never shoot again. Thorne stared at Dennis. Did you just... Yes. That shot was necessary. Impossible. Dennis set down the Barrett. Impossible is just another word, Marcus. You should know that by now. What happened next would change everything. Volkov was transported to medical. Sedated. Secured. The female operative who gave her name as Nadia was interrogated. She confirmed Brennan's involvement, gave locations, names, bank accounts, everything Thorne needed to take down the entire network. Within hours, FBI arrested Colonel Brennan at his Pentagon office, 16 other officers across 4 bases, 3 civilian contractors, and 2 sitting congressmen. The scandal exploded. Biggest military corruption case in 40 years. And at the center was Dennis Randall, the 82-year-old man who'd refused to stay quiet. News crews descended on Fort Bragg, hundreds of them. Thorne held a press conference. Today we dismantled an espionage network that had been operating for over 5 years, thanks to the bravery of one man. Spectre 1 Dennis Randall, we were able to expose corruption at the highest levels. Reporters shouted questions. Where is Randall now? Is he giving interviews? Will he testify at the trials? Thorne held up his hand. Mr. Randall is recovering from injuries sustained during the operation. He will not be giving interviews at this time. But what Thorne didn't say was that Dennis had already left. Sarah had checked him out of medical against doctor's orders. They drove away from Fort Bragg as the sun set. Where are we going? Sarah asked. Home. Dad, we can't go back. The media... Not that home, my real home. Where's that? Dennis was quiet for a moment. Arlington. Sarah understood. The cemetery. Yes. There's someone I need to visit. Should have visited him 50 years ago. But I was too scared, too angry, too broken. Larry. Yes. They drove through the night. Arrived at Arlington at dawn. The guard let them through. Thorne had called ahead, made arrangements. Dennis walked slowly through the rows, white headstones, thousands of them. Sarah held his arm, supporting him. They found it in Section 60. Lance Corporal Larry Thomas Bell, born April 3, 1950, died June 17, 1968. Dennis knelt, his knees protesting, his arm throbbing, but none of that mattered. Hey Larry, sorry it took me so long to visit. Been busy. You know how it is. His voice cracked. I kept my promise. Every shot. Made it count. Saved some people. Lost some too. But I tried. God, I tried so hard. Tears fell. You'd be proud, I think. Your rifle's still going. Still accurate. Still deadly. just like you said it'd be. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small box. Inside 3 medals: Silver Star, Bronze Star, Purple Heart. These were supposed to be yours. They gave them to me instead, said I earned them. But we both know the truth. You earned them. You just didn't live long enough to wear them. He set them on the headstone. I'm done now. Mission's over. Bad guys are caught. Truth's out there. Your rifle's going to a museum. And me, he smiled through tears, I'm finally going to rest. Like you've been resting all these years. Maybe I'll even sleep through the night. That'd be nice. Sarah knelt beside him, put her hand on his shoulder. Dennis stood slowly, saluted, sharp, perfect, the way Larry had taught him. Thank you, brother, for everything, for the rifle, for the lessons, for making me promise. That promise kept me alive, kept me human, kept me fighting. He lowered his salute. Rest easy, Larry. Your watch is over. Mine too. They walked back to the car. As they drove away, Dennis looked back one last time. The metals glinted in the rising sun, and for the first time in 50 years, Dennis Randall felt something he hadn't felt since Vietnam. Peace. But what he didn't know was that his story wasn't over. It was just beginning a new chapter. 2 weeks later, Dennis received a package, no return address, postmarked Berlin. Inside a letter, handwritten, German. Sarah translated. Mr. Randall, my name is Hauptmann Richter. You may remember me from Fort Bragg. I am the man who mocked you, who challenged you, who learned the hardest lesson of my military career. Dennis remembered. I write to apologize, not for that day. I have already apologized for that day. I write to apologize for not understanding what you represented. You are not just a sniper, not just a soldier. You are a reminder that honor matters more than technology. That character matters more than rank. That respect must be earned through actions, not demanded through words. The letter continued. I have resigned from KSK. I am returning to school. I want to teach, to train young soldiers not just in tactics, but in honor, in respect, in the things that make warriors more than just killers. I hope someday to meet you again, not as adversaries, but as students of the same code. The code Larry Thomas Bell taught you, the code you taught me. The letter ended. Thank you for not destroying me. Thank you for teaching me. Thank you for being what soldiers should aspire to be. With deepest respect, Martin Richter. Dennis set down the letter. Sarah wiped her eyes. That's beautiful, Dad. It's redemption. That's what it is. The kid learned. Maybe there's hope after all. His phone rang. Colonel Thorne. Dennis, how are you feeling? Old, tired, but okay. Good. Because I have a proposition. I'm retired Marcus. I know. But this isn't a mission, it's an opportunity. The new recruits at Delta Force, they need an instructor. Someone who can teach them what technology can't. Someone who can remind them why they serve. You want me to teach? I want you to inspire. 2 hours a week. Tell your stories. Share your lessons. Be what these young men and women need. A living connection to what we're supposed to be. Dennis thought about it. Thought about Larry. About the promise. About making it count. 2 hours a week. That's it. No combat, no missions. Just you. Talking, teaching. Okay, I'll do it. Really? Really, but on one condition. Name it. Sarah comes with me. She learns too. Time she understood what her old man actually did with his life. Thorne laughed. Deal. See you Monday. Dennis hung up. Sarah looked at him. You sure about this? No. But I'm sure about one thing. Larry made me promise to make every shot count. Well, teaching the next generation, that counts. That counts more than anything. You're going to be great at it. Maybe. Or maybe I'll just bore them with old war stories. Dad, you took down an international spy ring at 82. I don't think boring is possible. Dennis smiled. For the first time in years, he looked forward to tomorrow. Not with dread. Not with ghosts. Not with pain. With purpose. The following Monday, Dennis walked into a classroom at Fort Bragg. 20 young operators. Best of the best. Elite of the elite. They stood at attention as he entered. "Sit," Dennis said. They sat. He looked at them. These young warriors. These guardians. These protectors. "My name is Dennis Randall. Most of you know me as Spectre 1. Some of you think I'm a legend. I'm not. I'm just a man who made a promise 50 years ago and kept it." He paused. "Today I'm going to teach you the one thing technology can't replace. The one thing no computer can calculate. The one thing that separates good soldiers from great ones." "What's that, sir?" a young woman asked. Dennis smiled. "Honor, respect, integrity. The things that make you human. Because the day you lose those, the day you become just a killer with a rifle. That's the day you lose your soul." He picked up a marker, wrote 3 letters on the board. LTB. "These are the initials of my best friend. He died at 18, gave me his rifle, made me promise to make every shot count. I've spent 50 years keeping that promise. Now I'm making a new promise. To him, to you, to everyone who serves." He turned to face them. "I promise to teach you not just how to shoot, but why to shoot. Not just how to kill, but why that killing matters. Not just how to survive, but why survival isn't enough. You need to live with honor, die with honor, and most importantly, serve with honor." The room was silent, attentive, respectful. "Now," Dennis said, "let's talk about the fundamentals: breathing, patience, respect for the weapon, and most importantly, respect for the shot, because once that bullet leaves your barrel, you can't take it back." He taught for 2 hours. No notes, no slides, just stories, lessons, truth. When he finished, every operator stood, applauded. Not because he was a legend, because he reminded them why they served. After class, a young specialist approached. "Sir, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "That shot, when you hit Volkov's weapon, how did you make it?" Dennis smiled. "I didn't. The rifle did. I just held it steady and let it do its job." "But the calculation?" "There was no calculation, just instinct, experience, and faith that if I did my part, the rifle would do its. That's what makes you a legend." Dennis shook his head. "No, son. What makes a legend isn't the shots you take. It's the shots you don't take. The restraint, the discipline, the knowing when not to pull the trigger. That's what separates warriors from killers." The specialist nodded, understanding. Dennis packed his bag. Sarah waited by the door. "How'd it go?" she asked. "Better than expected. They listened, really listened. They respect you. They respect what I represent. There's a difference." They walked to the car. As Dennis opened the door, he looked back at the building. 20 young operators were visible through the windows, talking, laughing, learning. The next generation, the ones who'd carry the torch, the ones who'd keep the promise. "Larry would have loved this," Dennis said quietly. "I think he's watching," Sarah said, "proud of what you became." "Maybe. I hope so." They drove home. That night, Dennis slept through completely. No nightmares, no ghosts, no gunfire echoing through his dreams. Just peace. Deep, complete, earned. And somewhere in a place beyond words, Lance Corporal Larry Thomas Bell smiled, because his friend had finally learned the most important lesson. The mission wasn't about killing. It was about living. Living with honor, with purpose, with meaning. And Dennis Randall Spectre, 1, the ghost of Range 7, had finally completed his true mission. Not eliminating targets, but inspiring souls. And that was worth more than all the medals in the world. 6 months passed since Dennis started teaching, every Monday and Thursday, 2 hours each day, 20 eager faces listening to every word. But what Dennis didn't know was that his classes were being recorded, not by the military, by someone else entirely. The video appeared on YouTube 3 months into his teaching. Title: The Legend Speaks Spectre 1's Last Lessons. Dennis's daughter found it first. "Dad, you need to see this." He watched. His own voice, his own stories, his own lessons about honor and sacrifice. Who posted this, he asked. Anonymous account. But look at the views. 3 million in 2 days. 5 million by the end of the week. Comments flooded in. From veterans, from civilians, from people around the world. This man is what America should be. Finally, someone teaching honor instead of hate. My grandfather served in Vietnam. Hearing this makes me understand him better. Dennis closed the laptop. I didn't want this. I wanted to teach quietly. Dad, the world needs to hear this. Needs to remember what service means. The world doesn't care about old soldiers. The view count says different. What neither of them knew was that the video had reached someone who'd been searching for Dennis for 20 years. General William Crawford sat in his retirement home in Montana. 91 years old. Former chairman of Joint Chiefs. And Dennis Randall's commanding officer in Vietnam. He watched the video 3 times. Then he picked up his phone. Is this Dennis Randall? Dennis heard the voice, froze. General Crawford, the one and only, though considerably older and uglier than you remember. Sir, I thought you'd passed. I tried to find you for the funeral. Rumors of my death were greatly exaggerated. I'm still kicking. Barely. But I saw your video. We need to talk. About what? About Cambodia. About the truth. About the story that's never been told. Dennis's blood ran cold. Sir, that's classified. Not anymore. I got clearance. Full declassification. And Dennis? The world needs to hear what really happened. Not from files. From you. From us. I don't understand. I'm writing a book about Vietnam, about the operations no one knows about the men who saved lives while everyone called them monsters. And you're the centerpiece. I can't. You can, and you will. Because if we don't tell our story, someone else will. And they'll get it wrong. Dennis was quiet for a long moment. When do we start? What Dennis didn't know was that this decision would trigger a chain of events that would change everything he thought he knew about his past. 2 weeks later, Dennis flew to Montana. Sarah insisted on coming. They drove to Crawford's home, small cabin, mountains in the distance. The old general waited on the porch, thinner than Dennis remembered, frailer, but his eyes still sharp. Spectre 1, Crawford said, standing with effort. You look good for 82. You look good for 91, sir. They shook hands, grips still firm. Inside, Crawford had files spread across a table, documents, photos, mission reports. Sit, Crawford said. This'll take a while. Dennis sat, Sarah beside him. Crawford opened the first file. Cambodia, June 1968. Operation Silent Thunder. You remember every second. Good, because what I'm about to tell you will change how you remember it. Dennis's stomach tightened. The hostages. The 32 you saved, you thought that was luck. Right place, right time. Yes, sir. It wasn't luck. It was planned. What? Crawford pulled out a document. We knew about the hostages 3 days before you went in. We knew their location, their guards, everything. Then why didn't command send a full team? Because we couldn't, officially. Cambodia was neutral. We weren't supposed to be there. Sending a team would have been an international incident. So you sent 4 of us, unofficially. Exactly. Deniable. If you succeeded, great. If you died, we'd disavow knowledge. Say you went rogue. Dennis's hands clenched. You used us. We used you to save 32 lives, yes. And if we'd failed, then we'd have buried you as traitors. I'm sorry, Dennis, but that was the calculation. Sarah grabbed her father's hand. Dad, it's okay. Dennis's voice was tight. I suspected, deep down, the mission was too convenient, too perfectly timed. Crawford continued. But here's what you don't know. Those 32 hostages, they weren't random civilians. What were they? Intelligence assets, Vietnamese who'd helped us, translators, scouts, informants, people who'd risked everything for our mission. We couldn't leave them. Dennis processed this. So the entire operation was a rescue of our own people. Yes, people who'd kept our soldiers alive, who'd given us intel that saved hundreds of American lives. We owed them. Why didn't you tell me? Because if you were captured, you couldn't reveal what you didn't know. It was protection. For you. For them. Dennis stood, walked to the window, his mind reeling. 50 years. 50 years carrying the weight of 74 kills. And now he learns it was all orchestrated, all planned, all part of someone else's calculation. Who else knows, he asked. Just us. The files were sealed. President's eyes only. Until last month when they declassified. Why declassify now? Because someone in the current administration wants to use your story. Use Cambodia. Prove that small teams can accomplish big missions. They want to cut military funding. Use you as justification. Dennis turned. Use me how? Hold you up as proof that elite operators matter more than big armies. That we should invest in special operations instead of conventional forces. That's garbage. You need both. I know that. You know that. But politicians don't care about reality. They care about narratives. So what do? Crawford smiled. We tell the real story. The whole story. The one that doesn't fit their narrative. We tell them that Cambodia worked because of training, support, intelligence, all the things they want to cut. You want to use me too? I want to use the truth. There's a difference. Dennis sat back down. Tell me everything. Every detail, every lie, every manipulation. I want to know it all. What Crawford told him over the next 3 hours would expose secrets that reached the highest levels of government. The 74 kills, Crawford said. You thought they were all enemy combatants. They weren't. 68 were. 6 were different. Dennis's blood went cold. Different how? Double agents. Vietnamese working for both sides. We knew about them, marked them, made sure you'd encounter them. You used me as an executioner. We used you as a solution to a problem we couldn't solve legally. That's murder. That's war, and war isn't clean. Dennis stood again, pacing, his hands shaking. Did Larry know when he gave me his rifle? Did he know I'd be used like this? Crawford's face softened. Larry didn't know anything. He was 18, pure, innocent, the best of us. Then why did he die? Because his patrol got bad intel. Someone in command never proven who sent them into an ambush. 14 men went in, 1 came back. Who came back? You did, Dennis. You were part of that patrol. Don't you remember? The room spun. Dennis grabbed the table, his vision blurring. Memories flooded back. Memories he'd buried, suppressed, hidden even from himself. The patrol, the ambush, Larry bleeding, others screaming, and him, running, surviving, leaving them behind. No, Dennis whispered. No, I was with a different unit. I wasn't there. You were there. You survived, and the guilt broke you, so command reassigned you, gave you a new story, a new past, made you forget. That's impossible. Crawford pulled out another file. Patrol roster, June 15th, 1968. Your name. Right there. Dennis looked, saw his signature, his handwriting, his confirmation that he'd been part of that doomed patrol. I don't remember, he said. I don't remember any of it. That's trauma. That's survival. Your mind protected you the only way it knew how. By forgetting. Sarah was crying. Dad, is this true? I don't know. I don't know what's true anymore. Crawford stood, walked to Dennis, put a hand on his shoulder. What's true is this. You survived when others didn't. That's not weakness. That's not cowardice. That's luck. And you spent 50 years making that luck mean something. You kept Larry's promise. You saved lives. You became the warrior he believed you could be. I abandoned them. You survived them. There's a difference. I should have died with them. If you had 32 people in Cambodia would have died too. Thousands of soldiers you trained would have died too. Your daughter wouldn't exist. Your legacy wouldn't exist. Sometimes survival isn't selfish. Sometimes it's necessary. Dennis sank into the chair. His world shattered. Everything he thought he knew was wrong. Everything he believed was a lie. Everything he'd built was on a foundation that didn't exist. What do I do now? He asked quietly. You do what you've always done. You keep the promise. You make it count. But now you do it with the full truth. No more lies, no more secrets, just the real story of a real man who survived hell and chose to make it mean something. What Crawford didn't tell Dennis was that exposing this truth would put them both in danger. Because some secrets were meant to stay buried, and some people would kill to keep them that way. 3 days after Dennis returned from Montana, his house was broken into. Nothing stolen, but files disturbed, computers searched, photos moved. Sarah called the police. They found nothing. No forced entry, no fingerprints, no evidence. Professional job, the detective said. Someone knew what they were looking for. What were they looking for? Sarah asked. That's what you need to tell me. Dennis knew. They were looking for Crawford's documents, the proof, the evidence that would expose 50 years of lies. He called Thorne. We have a problem. What kind? The kind that breaks into houses. The kind that wants my story buried. I'm sending a team. Stay put. 2 hours later, operators arrived. Set up security. Swept for bugs. Found 3. Someone's been listening, Mason said. Probably for weeks. Who? Sarah asked. Good question. But Dennis already knew. Or suspected. Someone in the current administration. Someone who didn't want the real Cambodia story told. Someone who needed Dennis to stay the legend, not become the truth. His phone rang. Unknown number. He answered. Hello. Mr. Randall. We need to meet. Who is this? Someone who knows what Crawford told you. Someone who knows you're planning to publish. Someone who's asking you nicely don't. Or what? Or will be forced to discredit you, destroy your reputation, make you look like a liar suffering from dementia. We've done it before. Try it. Mr. Randall, you're a patriot. You served with honor. Don't throw that away by exposing operations that need to stay classified. They're already declassified. Paperwork can be refiled. Classifications can be reinstated. With one phone call, everything Crawford showed you becomes illegal to possess, and you become a criminal. Dennis's grip tightened on the phone. Who are you? I'm someone trying to protect you. Please, walk away. Live your remaining years in peace. Don't make us take action. The line went dead. Dennis looked at Sarah, at the operators, at the life he'd built on lies. They're threatening us. What do we do? Sarah asked. What Dennis said next would determine everything. We go public, now, before they can stop us. Thorne stepped forward. Dennis, if you do this, there's no going back. They'll come after you with everything. Let them. I've been running from the truth for 50 years. Time to face it. You could lose everything. Your reputation, your legacy, your peace. I already lost my peace. The day I left 13 men to die. Maybe telling the truth will help me find it again. Sarah grabbed his arm. Dad, think about this. I have. For 50 years. And I'm done thinking. Time to act. He called Crawford. General, we're publishing everything tomorrow. You sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. Good man. I've already sent the manuscript to 5 publishers and leaked portions to 3 journalists. They can't stop all of us. They'll try. Let them. I'm 91. What are they going to do? Kill me? I'm already dying. Stage 4 cancer. 3 months left. Dennis went silent. You didn't tell me. Didn't seem relevant, but it is now, because that's why I declassified everything. That's why I need this story told. I'm dying. You're old. If we don't tell it now, it dies with us. What about the consequences? There are always consequences, but some truths are worth the cost. Dennis hung up, looked at his daughter. He's dying. 3 months. Sarah's hand covered her mouth. Then we have to do this. For him. For Larry. For everyone who can't tell their story. It's going to get ugly. Good. I'm tired of pretty lies. What none of them knew was that the ugliness was already in motion, and it would arrive in less than 6 hours. The attack came at midnight. Not physical. Digital. Every website hosting Crawford's story crashed. Simultaneously. DDoS attacks. Coordinated. Professional. Dennis's email was flooded with thousands of messages. Spam. Threats. Overwhelming his system. Sarah's social media accounts were hacked, filled with fake posts, conspiracy theories, making her look unstable. "They're erasing us," she said, staring at her phone. "They're trying to," Dennis corrected, "but they're forgetting something." "What?" "I'm old. I don't live in the digital world. I live in the real one." He picked up his landline, called a number he'd memorized 40 years ago. A voice answered, gruff, tired. "Who's this?" "It's Dennis. I need a favor." Dennis Randall. "Holy hell. Haven't heard from you in decades." "I know, but I need you. One last time." "What's the job?" "Exposure. Truth. Taking down people who think they're untouchable." "I'm listening." Dennis explained everything. Cambodia, Crawford, the threats, the digital attacks. The voice on the other end was quiet for a moment. "You know this'll cost you everything." "I know. And you're still asking?" "I'm not asking. I'm calling in debts. You owe me. Jakarta, 1983. Long silence. "You saved my life. And now I need you to save my truth." "Done. Give me 6 hours." The voice belonged to Marcus Webb, not the lieutenant from the range. Different Marcus Webb, investigative journalist, Pulitzer winner, someone Dennis had protected during a black op in Indonesia, someone who owed him a life debt, and life debts in their world were sacred. 6 hours later, the story broke. Not on one site, on hundreds. The Washington Post, New York Times, Guardian, BBC, Al Jazeera, simultaneously, coordinated, unstoppable. The truth about Cambodia, how America sacrificed its heroes. The story detailed everything: the planned operation, the intelligence assets, the double agents, the lies. And at the center, Dennis Randall. Spectre 1. The man who'd carried the weight of 74 kills for 50 years without knowing the full truth. Public reaction was immediate. Half the country called him a hero, half called him a dupe. Politicians scrambled, denying, deflecting, blaming. But the evidence was undeniable. Crawford had documented everything, and now the world knew. Dennis watched the news coverage with Sarah. "You okay?" she asked. "No, but I will be." "Any regrets?" 1,000, but not about this. This needed to happen. His phone rang. "Thorne. You just kicked the hornet's nest." "I know." "Pentagon's in chaos. 3 generals are resigning. 2 congressmen are under investigation, and the White House is demanding answers." "Good." "Dennis, you understand what you've done. You've exposed the entire command structure, shown that leadership lied to soldiers for 50 years. Trust is shattered." "Trust was already shattered. I just exposed the cracks. Some people think you're a traitor. Some people thought I was a hero. Both were wrong. I'm just a man who finally told the truth." Thorne was quiet. "For what it's worth, I'm proud of you." "Thanks, Marcus. That means something." What Dennis didn't expect was the call that came next. 3 days after the story broke, his phone rang. German number. "Hello." "Mr. Randall, this is Martin Richter." Dennis remembered. The KSK sniper from the range. "Richter, what can I do for you?" "I wanted to thank you. Your story. Your truth. It's being taught in our military schools now, as an example of integrity, of honor, of what soldiers should aspire to be. I'm not sure I deserve that. With respect, sir, you do. You could have stayed quiet, protected your legacy. Instead, you chose truth over comfort. That's rare. That's precious. That's what we need to teach. Dennis felt something shift in his chest. Thank you, son. No, sir. Thank you. You gave me more than a lesson that day at the range. You gave me a purpose. I'm teaching now. Young soldiers. About honor. About respect. About making every shot count. Larry would have liked that. I hope to meet him someday. Through your stories. Through your legacy. Through the truth you've shared. They talked for an hour. About teaching. About service. About what it meant to be a warrior in a world that didn't understand warriors. When they hung up, Dennis felt something he hadn't felt in months. Hope. The book was published 6 weeks later. Silent Thunder, The True Story of Cambodia and the Men Who Carried Its Secrets, by General William Crawford and Dennis Randall. It became an instant bestseller. Not because of scandal, because of truth. Veterans bought it. Civilians bought it. Teachers bought it. People who wanted to understand what service meant, what sacrifice cost, what honor required. Crawford lived long enough to see it hit #1 on the New York Times list. He died 3 days later. Peaceful, content, mission complete. Dennis spoke at his funeral. General Crawford taught me 2 things. First, that truth is worth more than comfort. Second, that legacy isn't what people say about you. It's what you leave behind in the hearts of those who follow. He left behind truth. He left behind honor. He left behind a reminder that even in war, even in chaos, even in darkness, integrity matters. Rest easy, General. Your mission is complete. Your story is told. Your legacy is secure. 6 months after the funeral, Dennis received a package. Crawford's personal effects. Things his family thought Dennis should have. Inside letters, photos, and 1 sealed envelope. To be opened by Spectre 1 after my death. Dennis opened it with shaking hands. Inside a handwritten letter. Dennis, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Good. I was tired anyway. But before I left, I needed to tell you something I never could while alive. Something I swore I'd take to my grave. But now that I'm in said grave, I figure the oath is void. Larry didn't give you his rifle by accident. I ordered him to. Dennis's breath caught. 3 days before the ambush, I pulled Larry aside. Told him you were special. Told him you'd survive when others wouldn't. Told him that if anything happened, he should give you his rifle. Make you promise to make every shot count. I knew you'd carry that promise. Knew it would keep you focused, keep you fighting, keep you alive long enough to become what I knew you could be, the greatest sniper America ever produced. I manipulated you. I manipulated Larry. I manipulated fate. And I'd do it again. Because the alternative was losing both of you, and the world needed at least one of you to survive. I'm sorry for the burden I placed on you. Sorry for the lies. Sorry for the weight. But I'm not sorry for the result. You became everything I hoped. Everything Larry believed. Everything America needed. Forgive me if you can. Hate me if you must. But know this. Every life you saved. Every soldier you trained, every lesson you taught, that was Larry's legacy. That was your honor. That was our truth. Rest easy, my friend. You earned it. Crawford. Dennis read the letter 3 times, then burned it. Some truths didn't need to be shared. Some manipulations served a greater purpose. Some lies became truth through the weight of their consequences. He walked outside. Sarah was gardening. Everything okay? She asked. Yeah, just reading old war stories. Anything interesting? Nothing that changes anything. And that was true. Because whether Larry gave him the rifle voluntarily or under orders didn't change the promise. Didn't change the 50 years. Didn't change the lives saved. Didn't change anything that mattered. Dennis looked at his hands, still shaking slightly. Age would do that. But steady enough, always steady enough when it mattered. He walked to his workshop, opened the case. Inside Larry's rifle, the Winchester, the Woodstock, the 3 initials, LTB. He'd donated it to the Smithsonian last month. They'd built a whole exhibit around it. The rifle that kept a promise, the story of Spectre 1 and the legacy of honor. But before he'd given it to them, he'd carved something new into the stock. Beneath LTB, 3 more letters. W.C. William Crawford, because some legacies deserve to be remembered together. His phone rang. Thorne. You free Monday? Depends. Why? New recruits. They requested you specifically. Want to hear about Cambodia, about truth, about what it means to serve with integrity. How many bow? 50. 50? My class was 20. Words spread. You're not just teaching Delta anymore. We've got Rangers, SEALs, Marines. Everyone wants to learn from Spectre 1. Dennis smiled. Tell them I'll be there, but I have one condition. Name it. I don't teach tactics. I teach honor. If they want to learn how to kill, they can read a manual. If they want to learn why killing matters, why service matters, why truth matters, then I'm their guy. They know. That's why they're coming. Monday arrived. Dennis walked into a packed auditorium. 50 young faces, eager, hopeful, ready. He stood at the podium. No notes, no slides, just truth. My name is Dennis Randall. I'm 83 years old. I've killed 74 people. I've saved hundreds more. I've lied for my country. I've bled for my country. And I've finally told the truth about my country. He paused. Today I'm going to teach you the most important lesson I've ever learned. A lesson that took me 50 years to understand. A lesson that cost me everything and gave me everything. The lesson is, this honor isn't about being perfect. It's about being honest. Honest with your enemies. Honest with your brothers. And most importantly, honest with yourself. I spent 50 years living a lie. Believing a story that wasn't complete. Carrying weight that wasn't entirely mine to carry. And it nearly destroyed me. But when I finally told the truth, when I finally faced what really happened, I found something I thought I'd lost forever. Peace. Not because the truth made things better, but because the truth made things real. He looked at the 50 faces. You're going to see terrible things. You're going to do terrible things. You're going to carry weights that civilians can't understand. And you're going to question whether it's worth it. I can't answer that for you. But I can tell you this. If you do those terrible things with honor, if you carry those weights with integrity, if you question with honesty, then yes, it's worth it. Because at the end of your life, when you look back, you won't remember the kills. You'll remember the lives saved. You won't remember the missions. You'll remember the brothers. You won't remember the medals. You'll remember the promises kept. Make your promises worth keeping. Make your shots count. Make your service matter. That's all I have. Questions. Every hand went up. He smiled. This was why Larry gave him the rifle. This was why Crawford pushed him to speak. This was why surviving 50 years of lies finally led to truth. Because truth once spoken couldn't be unspoken, and honor once taught couldn't be untaught. Dennis Randall, Spectre 1. The Ghost of Range. 7 spent the next 3 hours answering questions. Teaching, inspiring, challenging. When he finished, every soldier stood, saluted, not because he was a legend, because he was honest. And honesty in a world of lies was the rarest form of courage. That night, Dennis sat on his porch. Sarah brought him coffee. Good day, she asked. Best day I've had in 50 years. Really? Really. Today I wasn't Spectre 1. I wasn't the legend. I wasn't the ghost. I was just Dennis. A man who survived, who learned, who finally understood that survival isn't selfish, it's sacred. You think Larry would be proud? Dennis looked at the stars. I think Larry's been proud this whole time. I just couldn't hear him until I stopped lying to myself. Sarah sat beside him. What happens now? Now I keep teaching, keep sharing, keep making every day count, until I can't anymore. And then I'll rest, knowing I kept my promise, made it count. Did what Larry asked. He sipped his coffee. But until then, I've got work to do, promises to keep, truth to tell, honor to teach. Sarah smiled. You're not done yet, are you? Not even close. And he wasn't. Dennis Randall taught for 3 more years, reached thousands of soldiers, changed countless lives, showed a generation that honor wasn't old-fashioned, it was timeless. When he died at 86, they buried him at Arlington, Section 60, right next to Larry. The headstone read, Dennis James Randall, Spectre 1, 1943-2029. He kept his promise. At the funeral, 50 soldiers stood honor guard, Rangers, SEALs, Delta Force, Marines, men and women he'd taught, inspired, changed. Sarah spoke at the service. My father spent his life carrying promises to his friends, his country, his code, and he kept every single one. Not perfectly, not without cost, but honestly, with integrity, with honor. He taught me that truth is harder than lies, that honor is harder than convenience, that doing right is harder than doing easy. But hard things are worth doing, because they matter, because they last, because they change the world. Dad changed the world, one shot at a time, one promise at a time, one truth at a time. Rest easy, warrior. Your mission is complete. Your promises are kept. Your legacy is secure. The 50 soldiers fired 3 volleys. Taps echoed across the cemetery, and somewhere in a place beyond words, Lance Corporal Larry Thomas Bell waited. Took you long enough, Larry said with a smile. Sorry, Dennis replied. Had promises to keep. I know. I was watching. You did good. You think, I know. You made every shot count, just like I asked. They walked together through fields that never saw war, through peace that never ended, through a place where promises didn't need keeping because they were already fulfilled. And behind them, carved in stone and memory, 3 letters remained. LTB. Not just initials, a legacy, a promise, a reminder that some things honor sacrifice, truth never die. They just wait for someone brave enough to carry them forward. Dennis Randall carried them for 50 years. Now others would carry them further, because that's what legacies do. They don't end, they transform, they inspire, they endure. And honor once learned is never forgotten.